So Andrea, tell us where you're from.
I'm from Calgary, Alberta, in Canada. It's right where the Rocky Mountains are. It's we're just a little east of that, and it's a beautiful country.
Oh, I bet it is. And so, let's hear your story. What happened?
Well, I want to go back to when I actually, because I would be called the offending party. So I've been told by several people not to share my testimony because people would hate me and not want to hear my story. And so I've been kind of like, I'm the person that people would say, they would say, well, she's the one that did it all and caused the divorce and did the adultery. And so, but I have been absolutely, I have been rescued, and I've been taken from the dark pit of going the wrong direction. And it is vital because I don't think I'm the only one that has fallen to this, to being seduced and to being taken away into the pit of adultery. Starting back in 2018, I was very much involved in the church. I was doing worship leading. I'm a singer and I play keyboard, and I raised my 3 children in church, and they were always in the faith. And right now, after all that has happened, my daughters no longer are in the faith. My son still is, and I'm praying for my girls to come back. And it's really, really sad, tragic right now. But I'm believing for their restoration as well. What happened was I don't want to hurt my husband's testimony, like my husband's reputation, but we did have a rough marriage for many, many years, and I had built up a grudge against him, and yet I always said I would never do adultery, I would never fall away, I would never do this. Be careful if you think that you're proud and you think that you're not going to fall, because then the devil will come in and you will be tempted beyond what you can imagine. Things were really bad because on my husband's side, because of substance abuse and things like that. But I'm not here to blame him. I'm here to say what I did. I remained faithful in some really bad times. And so I thought, well, we'll never separate. I never thought we would. But I had built up this grudge because of the substance abuse. And so it was a foothold for the devil to use against me. And so it's very important that you don't have a grudge against your husband who is not living right, who's doing things that aren't right, and that you feel hurt by. And it's important to not allow that to get into your spirit. I mean, because I was having experiences with the Lord. I had one time right before this all happened where the Lord spoke to me in the car, clear as audio as, I mean, I don't know if it was, in my spirit or out loud, and he said to me, "Are you ready to go home to heaven soon?" So, and I was so filled with, I just want to hear the Lord speak to me again.
I just got Holy Spirit tingles when you said that.
I loved it.
Oh my goodness.
I had such a close, and I was just like following, I was giving out tracts, I was helping the poor, and I was strongly following the Lord. And it's interesting. I was prideful in myself too. and in my flesh. So the whole thing is don't have a grudge and don't be strong in yourself. You've got to give the Lord, he has to be Lord. You can't be in your strength. It has to be in the Lord's strength. So what happened was my husband was out of town in the States, in Texas, for months and months and months. And I started looking online on Facebook.
Yeah, glad I didn't do Facebook.
and when I did a selfie, and then I started getting all this attention, and all of a sudden I had a flood of men writing me, and I'm going, what is this? I was so shocked, and I was like, lonely and starving for attention, and I resisted for a long time, but someone got through, and I was really hooked on this one person. And he was unhappy in his marriage. I was unhappy in my marriage. And we said, when we're free someday, we'll get together. And we started to talk like that. And it was something that I got hooked on, and I just couldn't let go of this guy. And my husband tried with all of his might. He found out about it. He found out on my phone that I was talking to someone. And we went to counseling. We did everything, but I had already been seduced by, in my emotions with this man. And I thought, like all the, I was into feeling this romantic feelings towards him. And anyways,
and you were hardening your heart. You were hardening your heart towards your husband too, right?
It was hard towards my husband, and then on top of that, the other dangerous thing for women to watch, or men, is I had a couple of friends that saying, well, Andrea, there's a reason why you were looking for love outside. There's things wrong in your marriage, and it's okay to divorce and remarry. And I started to have people advising me that, yeah, you're not supposed to be with your husband. He's not good, and you need a Christian man, a godly man, and things like this. And and then I found a counselor that was a pastor that was all for divorce and remarriage.
Oh, wow.
And so I had a lot of counsel that was not right. And I didn't know. I wasn't even studying divorce and remarriage at this time. I just thought, well, how can I get divorced from my husband so I could be with this man that I really want to be with? And I knew in the Canadian law that, we had to have adultery could be one of the bases for divorce, because in Canada it can't be a no-fault divorce. So,
I didn't know that. Really?
Yeah, it's not no-fault divorce here. You have to have one, either abandonment of a year, or adultery, or you have to prove abuse. Wow. Those are the only ways you can get divorced here in Canada.
There are not that many things that are more conservative about Canada than the United States, but that definitely is. Yeah, no-fault divorce was a major blow.
Yeah, so me and this fellow, I'll never say the names out loud.
Yeah,
but me and
we're
this
not
fellow,
be using names or last names or anything. It's
no,
just,
nothing like that.
Andrea, that's it.
Just,
I'm Andrea.
That's it.
I'm Terry, and you're Andrea, and I don't give my last name.
Yeah,
out.
and so we arranged, like my husband put me in an apartment, and he was paying for it. He was always hoping I would come back. He was really committed to the marriage, and I was committed to finding a way out of it. So
y'all separated, but
we separated, and then I met this other fellow. We did the act to get the adultery, so we had it on record.
Oh wow!
And I used that as my way to get divorced. And then I had to also ask. I couldn't file for divorce because I was the offending party. So I had to ask my husband to divorce me.
Oh my goodness!
So I was set on divorce And I say all this.
Wow.
It sounds like I sound like such a horrible person, but you have to hear the end of the story.
Yeah, but no, really. So in other words, it's like you've made your mind up that you want a divorce, and you know what you have to do in order to get it. So you commit adultery, and then you go to tell your husband, okay, now I've committed adultery, so now please divorce me so I can have what I want.
That's right.
Oh, wow.
He finally let me go. The divorce happened in, it was October 2019. And then the papers came through in February. And then I was, of course, living on my own. And then, of course, I had to start paying for my own expenses after the divorce went through. And so, of course, I was making arrangements because the person that I was crazy and hooked over, he lived in the States and I was in Canada. Now, all of a sudden, we got COVID and there's so many restrictions, you can't cross the border.
Right. So
it was really, really hard to try to figure out how to move my stuff, and so we planned on it was really rough, like to get it to work, to get married to him. Like
was he already? That's what I was going to ask. He had
left his wife. He had left his wife before I had left mine, and he had got his divorce like 6 months before mine. So.
And did he also think he was a Christian?
Yes. So he wanted to marry me and get away from his wife and everything. And so his anyways, I won't go into his family right
both
now.
of you thought that this was God's will, that God wanted you to be happy. Because
he was more, believe it or not, in my belief, he was more godly and more of a Christian than what my husband was. Right. So, and like I was so deceived, right? Okay. I mean, but you got to remember, I had advice from pastor and from these two friends of mine and
the counselor.
And it was,
the
counselor. I had all this advice saying, this was okay. Cause you got to remember, when you want something, you're going to paint it like your husband's abusing you, right? You're going to paint it like, all the years of abuse, blah, blah. But it wasn't really like that. Now I look back. I mean, now I can see clearly, but I'm just saying it wasn't, but that's how deceived I was. Okay. This was a spirit of lust that had absolute control over me.
Right.
And I want to put that in there because that comes into play later.
Okay.
And, so I go down, I finally managed to go down to see this fellow, and, we got engaged, but then he never proceeded to really go through with getting the marriage to go through. And I thought, well, what's going on? And so we kind of had we thought, this isn't the right time. And we saw a pastor, and he said, Andrea, you need to go back and make things right with your family before you can move on. And so I thought, well, I better do that. I better come back and try to reconcile with my kids. Because all through this time, with the spirit of lust and wanting this man, I didn't think of my kids much. I didn't think about how I was hurting my family. I was so selfish and so self-centered. I just wanted this man.
And your kids were upset, weren't they?
Oh, yeah. No, my son wrote me off, and my youngest was the first to come back to me and help me. And then my eldest daughter, she came later. But so I came back. So because it didn't work out, everything was kind of like not working out because he wasn't proceeding with, bringing my stuff over. And so I was wondering, what's going on? So I was only there 3 weeks. Then I came back in 2020. This was August 2020. And my husband, that's because he is my husband. I don't like calling him my ex. My husband.
No, I don't use that term.
My husband got me a place for a year. Because I had to find a place to live. I couldn't live at home, obviously, not when I was in this relationship. And of course, I missed this man terribly, and he missed me. And through the year, we tried to arrange it so I could come and, for us to get married for sure next time. So in 2021, I know this is not that long ago, but in 2021, I finally got everything all ready to move again, and I sold all my furniture, and I got a friend to take my car and hold it for me because I knew I couldn't bring my car over, but it was very difficult to move in 2021 to the States. And so I got there, and we right away got married in Florida, and then we went back to his place. And I've got to explain what happened when I got married. The first thing is I couldn't say the words "I vow." I said, let's just say "I promise." Okay, so then we said "I promise," and we were just like, it was him and me, and a civil service on the beach. That was it. And the morning after, I had the demon of lust speak to me very clearly. And I was told, I heard the laugh, and I said, "We got you now. You're going to be destroyed. You've lost everything. You've lost your family, and you're not going to be able to go back." And I was
just repeat that strongly. Repeat that strongly. People need to hear this. Can you just really?
The spirit of lust came to me very clearly, and it was another encounter, and I could hear the voice because I heard first the laugh. I was alone in the bedroom at the hotel, and he said to me, "Haha, we got you. You're going to be destroyed. You lost everything, and your life is over." Basically, that's what I was told. So and with that, when I was told that by the spirit of lust left me, and I was filled with the realization of what I had done. So I no longer lusted after this man. It wasn't that, he was nice, and of course we got along and we had some good times, but it wasn't the same. It wasn't like I was driven to be with this man. It was like I saw clearly that I had done wrong, and that I was out of God's will, and that I was fooled, and I felt so lost, and I felt absolutely despair came over me. And from that point on, every morning I would be crying and seeking God for forgiveness and repentance. And I was reading my Bible like crazy. And so a lot of things started to go wrong. Yes, I lost my kids. I started to realize, I really miss my kids. And I realized I had no way of talking to them except for my youngest. And of course, my husband I wasn't able to talk to him anymore, obviously. And so I felt like I thought I lost everything, and I lost my soul. And I was crying out to God and praying and repenting, but I was in adultery.
Yeah.
And I knew it. I mean, there's not, you know what? Here's one thing I want to say. I know so many people that are remarried. You know you're not right with God. You know. I mean, I was even on a worship team down in the States. I was playing the keyboard and stuff. And I mean, you would never think that there was anything wrong. Of course we were happy together, but when I was alone, I would be so sad. It was so despairing. And then things started to go wrong, like my health. I started to have gynecologists gynecological problems where I had to see a specialist, and they wanted to do surgery on me. They thought maybe I had cancer, and I got COVID, and I was sick, and all these, so health problems happened, and I started to see that things were not, working out so good down there. And I was missing Canada so much. I was missing everything about Canada, and I started to think of my husband. And I started to think how I was missing my husband, and my home was, and I started to wake up. It was kind of like the prodigal son. When he woke up, I know exactly how that feels. Like you're in the sin and you're in the pig pen, and everything's gone and you've lost it all. And then all of a sudden you wake up and you realize, you know what, I had it better at home. And that was exactly the feeling that I had. And at the end of January, so I got married in September of 21. And the end of January, I was crying every day to my daughter because she was the only one that would listen to me. And I wrote an email to my husband, and I begged him to take me back. And he wrote back, and he said, and we talked, and we started to talk on the phone, and he said, God has given me a love for you, and I forgive you.
Wow.
And isn't that something,
That is something.
And he said he was going to come and get me. And so he would have to leave, of course, go across, because it was 3,000 miles away where I was. And I showed, now where I got convicted, and I showed this man that I had married the verses, and the verses that convicted me, and no one taught me, no one showed me, no pastor talked about it ever, because you never hear about it in the church, was I read Romans 7, 1-3, and it hit me like a ton of bricks, and I knew I was in adultery, that I was called an adulteress in the eyes of the Lord. And I didn't need any other verses. I knew that. I shared that with him, and he felt the same conviction. We saw this pastor, we made an appointment to see him, and I said, and he agreed that I had to go back and separate from this man, and I had to go back and make things right.
This was a pastor in the Florida. You were in Florida with this?
No, this was a different state. I won't say the state, but this was a different state.
You were going to church with the now second husband, and
yes,
you're the second wife, and y'all are going to church, and someone there.
No, this was a different pastor from a different church.
Okay.
It was it was just a connection that we had visited this church, and we had seen him a couple of times because there were so many problems with the family and the children.
But there was a pastor who was telling you to go back to your husband.
The truth. Yeah, I had one pastor that told me the truth. Because the church where we were in, they were okay with divorce and remarriage. And they said we could, so we were in a small group with a couple that were divorced and remarried leading it. So, we were, so there was no conviction at that church, but we sought out this other pastor to get some help. And he said, yes, and he told me I had to go back and that we had to separate. Well, so I let that husband know that I was going to go back, and he agreed because he wanted to be right with God, but he didn't want to reconcile with his wife.
Yeah, that was something I was going to ask you. When you were, when the devil spoke to you basically and told you that you were going to be destroyed, did you have any also remorse or conviction about his covenant wife?
I did. I have been I don't know. I've been praying every day now for them to be reconciled, and I have repented. I have said sorry to the Lord about, how I've hurt that woman, and
would she say, I don't know exactly what the timing of it all, but would she say that you stole her husband from her, which she said. I mean, did he get a divorce so that he could marry you, is what he was thinking? Or was he just already getting a divorce and you just happened to be...
He wanted the divorce with or without me. He didn't. Okay. He wanted to leave her. It had nothing to do with me. He told me that many times. Okay. She never really knew. He had done an affair years ago, and he was unhappy with her for many years. So it was between them. I was told many times that it had nothing to do with me, because while we were courting, him and I, we broke up a few times and he went out with someone else. So it wasn't like, and he was divorced, and it wasn't like he just didn't want to go back to her. So I don't know. I really don't know my part, but I am so sorry for what I have caused, because I certainly didn't help them in their marriage. Absolutely. Right. I didn't help them, but I wasn't the reason why he left. Okay. So
yeah, sorry, I just wanted to clarify.
Anyways, he knew that I had problems because I was so miserable losing my children. All of a sudden, my children became very, very important to me. Mm-hmm. And I started to miss my husband. Mm-hmm. And so my husband, despite his family, his brothers and sister, none of them wanted him to come back and get me. And the children said, yeah, Dad, it's okay, you can go get her, but my son still wouldn't have anything to do with me. My girls were okay with it. My eldest, I took a little while, but we're really close now. But he came and he flew out, and we had a moving van, and it went very easily. I just want to say one thing in regards to my second, the divorce remarriage guy. He was very good to let me go without any issue. He was very good to help me pack up the van and all my stuff. He wasn't giving me a hard time, and he didn't mistreat me or anything like that. He was very kind. But we knew it was wrong. We knew the Lord was not with us. Mm-hmm. So I just want to say, I was really blessed to have no, problem with that end. Mm-hmm. But my husband came, and we packed up, and I said, let's get out of here. Yeah. And I can't wait to get back. And of course it was a hard road to reconcile with so many people. My son now is fully reconciled to me. I'm so happy and blessed with that. And our family's good, except for my husband's brothers and sisters and their family. They haven't accepted me. They don't want anything to do with me. In fact, my husband and the kids, well, they're in their 20s, they're having a New Year's celebration with them this afternoon, mm-hmm. and I'm not invited, so mm-hmm. I'm alone. But I spend so much time with the Lord, and I'm just so close to the Lord, and I read and pray so much in my day. I'm happy. I have no ill feelings towards anybody that hasn't accepted me yet. Mm-hmm. I understand this is a really hard thing to accept. But anyways, so really that's the story.
Your husband pretty much is a Hosea. He's a Hosea who took his adulterous wife back.
He did. And, we haven't had to have counseling. It's just we've talked a lot, of course. And I got my divorce from my remarriage this a few months ago, and so I don't even God. I say to people, God doesn't recognize that at all. God sees me with my husband. We are married. God sees us as this is my marriage. I'm with my husband. Right. He doesn't see I'm forgiven. He who has sinned a lot, loves a lot. I mean, who's forgiven a lot, loves a lot. That's and I'll tell you, I'm so thankful every day. I have so much thankfulness. I thank the Lord every day for rescuing me and for saving me from what that demon had said to me, the destruction that And if I would have stayed in it, yes, I would have. Because, we can damn ourselves to hell by our actions and our sin. And there is no one saved, always saved. I was absolutely lost. I know what that feels like. And I saw how I saw how the enemy wanted to destroy me and my family, because I was doing a lot of ministry before I fell. Of course, I was removed from the church, in the ministry of music before when I was separated from my husband. But right now, I'm just doing videos, singing online, because the Lord has made it clear to me He wants me to do songs, praise songs, and worship to Him on YouTube, because I don't have a church to do that ministry in anymore. So that's what I do now. I read scripture and I sing online, little songs and stuff, little old hymns and things like that.